Ex-wife made me tea that smelled weird. I swapped it with my sister-in-law's cup then. The kettle started to scream and I didn't move to stop it. Just stood there, leaning slightly against the counter, one hand resting on the edge of the sink, watching the steam rise in long, twisting fingers. I don't know how long I waited. It felt like too long, but not long enough for anything to have changed. The sound cut through the silence like it was accusing me of something, negligence, hesitation, grief, I don't know. I turned it off with a jerk of my wrist and the sudden quiet was almost louder. Then I realized she was watching me from across the room. Her arms were crossed, that faint smirk on her lips, not cruel, just unreadable, like always. "I made yours already," she said, holding out a mug like it was a peace offering. I took it without thinking. The ceramic was warm against my palm, familiar, too familiar. It was her old lilac mug, the one she used every morning when we still lived together. I thought I'd gotten rid of it. Thought maybe I'd boxed it up with her other things or shattered it during one of those late-night breakdowns when the only thing that made me feel anything was the sound of something breaking. But there it was, back, whole, like it never left. She was still standing too close. She always stood too close, even after the divorce, especially after. I think she liked watching me flinch. "It's chamomile," she said. "You still have trouble sleeping." I nodded because it was easier than saying yes. The truth was I hadn't slept properly in months, not since she left. Not since the mornings stopped smelling like her skin and cheap coffee and everything got replaced with absence. Heavy, echoing absence. It had settled into the walls like mold. She handed me the cup. The weight of it felt off, too light. I brought it up to my nose before I realized I was doing it. It smelled wrong. Not bad exactly, not like something spoiled or burned, just artificial, like a smell pretending to be another smell. Floral, almost too floral, like potpourri at a dead aunt's house. Cloying, there was something underneath it too, a bitter edge I couldn't name. "What's in this?" I asked too casually. Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. "Just tea, you're so suspicious lately." I laughed, tried to make it sound like a joke, "Only when you're being nice to me." She rolled her eyes and turned away, back to the others in the living room. Her sister was already sitting on the couch, folding a napkin into neat little triangles like she always did when she was bored or anxious. She wasn't drinking her tea yet, just holding it in both hands, blowing gently over the surface like it was something sacred. The room was warm, dim, with the overcast gray leaking in through the windows. Everything felt heavy, saturated. There was a smell in the air, something between perfume and citrus, and the wood polish I'd used earlier that morning in a half-hearted attempt to make the house feel lived in. She was here for her sister's birthday. That was the excuse, an afternoon visit, nothing more. She texted me 2 days ago, just a couple hours, I promise it's important to her. Like I was the one making it difficult. I didn't say no. I never really said no to her. The mug was still in my hand, my fingers wrapped too tightly around it. My knuckles were pale, skin dry and cracked from the cold. I walked into the living room, heart ticking too fast, sat across from her sister, smiled when she smiled, nodded when she asked how I was doing, like we were two friends catching up and not people stuck in the same tangle of someone else's mess. She lifted her tea, brought it to her lips, hesitated. I felt it then, this cold, electric spike in my spine. It wasn't logic, it wasn't even fear, it was something older than either of those. Instinct, maybe, some deep part of me that said, no, don't. And then I did it. I reached across gently, pretending to knock something over, my phone, I think, brushed her elbow, said, "Sorry, could you hold this for a second?" Before I even realized the words were coming out of my mouth, I handed her the lilac mug, took hers without looking. She didn't question it, she never did, just smiled, polite and slightly confused, and brought the rim to her lips. I waited. Nothing happened, of course nothing happened. But something had already changed, something irreversible. I couldn't bring the other cup to my mouth, I just held it there, frozen halfway, staring down into the liquid. Pale gold, slightly cloudy, it smelled clean, normal, like the teas I used to buy in bulk when I still gave a shit about my health. Ginger, maybe, a hint of lemon, I could feel the warmth through the ceramic like a pulse. The lilac mug sat on the coffee table now, nearly empty. She laughed at something her sister said. The sound crawled under my skin like it had teeth. I tried to join in, failed, my lips felt rubbery, my jaw tight. Something about the way she moved, my ex-wife, was off today. She was too relaxed, too familiar with the house she didn't live in anymore, like she still owned it, still owned me. Her bag was slung carelessly over the chair in the dining room. Her coat hung next to mine in the hallway. She walked into the kitchen like she never left. She opened drawers without asking. I stood up, said I needed the bathroom. The hallway felt longer than it should have, the air colder. Inside the bathroom, I shut the door, locked it, and sat on the edge of the tub. I could hear the muffled voices from the living room, hers, her sister, and the space in between them where I used to fit. I stared down at my hands, they were trembling. I tried to reason with myself, told myself it was nothing, that the tea was probably just some fancy sleep blend from a health store, that she probably meant well, or at least not harm, that I was spiraling, overthinking, classic me. But then I thought, what if I didn't switch them? Would I have drunk it? I didn't know. And the fact that I didn't know, that I could believe she might do something, was the worst part. Trust doesn't shatter all at once. It's a slow erosion, a quiet undoing. You don't notice the rot until it's in the foundation, until the floor caves in under your feet and all you can do is lie there in the dust wondering when it started. She used to make me tea when I was sick, rub my back when I had night terrors, hold my hand when I couldn't remember who I was. She used to love me, I think, or maybe I just needed her to. But when she left, she didn't look back, just packed her things, left a note, and took the lilac mug with her. Now it was back like a ghost, and I didn't trust her anymore. That was the breaking point, not the tea, not the switch, not even the look on her face when she smiled like she still knew me. It was the part of me that realized I might never be able to believe anything she said again. And worse, I wasn't sure if I could believe myself. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, counting the soft thumps of the radiator kicking in and out like some mechanical heartbeat, the kind you can't rely on. My thoughts weren't even racing. They just drifted like leaves in murky water, not sharp, not vivid, just heavy, suspended. I kept replaying the moment, the switch, the mug changing hands, her sister's lips touching the rim meant for me, the nothing that followed. Nothing happened, and yet everything had changed. I kept thinking, why did I do that? And then why did I have to? The next morning, I avoided the kitchen. I poured black coffee from the machine I hated, didn't eat, let the sink fill with dishes like it was someone else's problem. I thought maybe I'd feel better once the sun came up, but I didn't. The light just made everything look flatter, exposed, the kind of clarity that doesn't soothe, it accuses. I needed to talk to someone, not a friend. I didn't have those in any real way anymore. Not the kind you call and say, "Hey, I think I just prevented my own poisoning, maybe, possibly, and I'm not sure if I made it up." That's not how people talk. That's not how people listen either. I found the grief group by accident, or maybe it found me. I'd gone to the community center to sign up for something stupid, some woodworking class I'd never attend, some excuse to be out of the house on a Thursday night. There was a flyer on the corkboard near the restrooms. White paper, black text, non-traditional grief support group. Thursdays at 7 p.m. You don't need a funeral to feel loss. That line hit me in the chest. I didn't go the first week. I sat outside in my car, engine idling, fingers frozen on the steering wheel. I watched people walk in, regular people, old mostly. A couple younger ones with that hunched, heavy look like they were carrying something they didn't know how to put down. Second week I went in. There were about 9 of us, give or take. A semicircle of folding chairs and mismatched mugs of stale coffee. The room smelled like disinfectant and paper. No one looked directly at anyone else. That was a comfort, like we had an agreement. We're here because the world stopped making sense and we're not going to make it harder than it already is. I didn't speak the first 3 times, just listened. There was a woman whose cat died after 20 years and she couldn't sleep without the weight of it on her legs. A man who said he still called his mother's phone to hear her voicemail, even though she'd been dead for 4 years. And Carl, who I kept watching because there was something about the way he sat too still, like if he moved too much he might shatter. Carl told the group he was divorced too, that he used to think his wife put something in his food during the last months together. He laughed when he said it, the kind of laugh that's halfway to crying, and said, "Of course she didn't, I'm just crazy." And everyone nodded. But I didn't. I knew what he meant. After the meeting, I stood outside smoking a cigarette I didn't want. I hadn't smoked in years, but the act of it made me feel real somehow. Like the burn in my throat could remind me that I was still in my body. Carl came out and nodded at me like we were in the same secret club. I asked him what he meant about the food. He shrugged, "Just a feeling, nothing ever happened. I just stopped trusting her, and then I stopped trusting everything." I told him I understood. But I didn't tell him about the tea, not yet. That came later. The days blurred. I tried not to think about her, about the way she walked around my house like she still had a claim to it, the way she'd smiled handing me that mug, the smell, the switch. I tried not to think about how easy it had been to act, to do something like that without even thinking. I couldn't write, couldn't work. I spent hours in the kitchen with the lights off, just sitting at the table, staring at nothing. I started reading tea labels in grocery stores, standing there in front of the wellness aisle like an idiot sniffing boxes, trying to find the one that matched. Chamomile, lemon balm, valerian root, skullcap. What the hell was skullcap? Nothing smelled like that tea. One night I Googled subtle poisons that smell floral. I got lost in rabbit holes about herbal sedatives and unregulated supplements. I told myself it was about knowledge, about curiosity, but really I just wanted to know I wasn't crazy. Or maybe that I was, at least then it would be mine. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not Carl, not even the group, but it sat in me like a splinter, not infected but always there, catching on things. And her sister, she texted me the week after, said thanks for hosting, that she had a great time, said she missed me. That hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for, because she meant it, because she had no idea. I stared at the text for hours, typed and deleted a dozen replies, ended up sending a heart emoji like some deadbeat ghost who didn't know how to be human anymore. I watched myself go quiet. There was this moment, I remember it so clearly, where I stood in front of the mirror in the bathroom, looking at my own face and thought, "You're not you anymore, you're something else now, something scared, something always watching the door." And once you start living like that, you don't really live. You wait. You flinch. You start checking every label, every smell, every gesture. You watch people's hands too long. You sit in your own house and wonder if you're safe. From them. From yourself. From the past you keep dragging behind you like a torn coat that doesn't fit anymore. I wanted to move on, I did, but before you can move on, you have to know what you're leaving behind. And I wasn't sure what that was yet. Only that it was following me. I didn't plan to see her again, not really. I mean, we still lived in the same city, but I'd rearranged my habits like a nervous animal, avoiding the grocery store she liked, skipping restaurants where we used to sit for hours, pretending the town had shrunk down to 2 safe streets and the empty library parking lot. But that day I was tired, tired of walking in circles, tired of the tea haunting my dreams. Tired of this loose thread in my head that wouldn't stop unraveling, so I let myself go to the store, middle of the day, harmless. I was halfway through the produce aisle when I heard her laugh. It was like a hand closing around my ribs. She was there 2 aisles over near the olives and pickled things, holding her phone between her shoulder and her cheek, laughing that easy, familiar laugh I hadn't heard in months. A man stood beside her, maybe a friend, maybe more, but I didn't look long enough to find out. I turned my cart, left it next to the onions, and followed her down the cereal aisle like I was sleepwalking. I didn't even know what I was going to say, I just knew I had to say something, because it wouldn't leave me alone otherwise. Because there was this little clawed thing in my gut that wouldn't stop digging, because if I didn't ask, it would never go away. I caught her outside just as she was unlocking her car. Her coat was wrapped tight around her and her keys jingled like bells in the cold. She looked up surprised. "Oh, hey." Like I was some guy she'd bumped into once at a party. Casual, cordial, not the man who used to watch her sleep, not the man who used to fold her socks just the way she liked. "I need to ask you something," I said before I could lose my nerve. She tilted her head. "Okay." "That tea," I said, "at your sister's birthday." Her face changed, but only slightly. A flicker, a shadow passing over glass. "What about it?" "What was in it?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It was chamomile. You always liked that one." "It didn't smell like chamomile." "It was a mix: chamomile, valerian root, lemon balm. You've probably never had valerian before." I stared at her. "Why only me?" "What?" "You only made that tea for me. No one else had it." She laughed, but it was short and sharp. "What is this, an interrogation?" I didn't back down. "Just tell me." She took a step back like I was suddenly a stranger. "You think I did something to you?" "I don't know," my voice cracked. Something felt wrong. I couldn't drink it." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked away, then back at me. "Wow, okay, so this is where we are now." I switched the cups. Silence. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You what?" "I gave mine to your sister. She drank it." Now she did step back, like the words had stung her physically. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I needed to know if it was real, if I was crazy. "So you poisoned someone else just to prove a point?" No, I didn't. You're unbelievable. Her voice rose, sharp and cold. I was trying to help you sleep. You looked like shit. You still do. You never told me what was in it. You never asked. I'm asking now. It was tea, she snapped, not hemlock. And for a second, just a second, I believed her. Then I remembered how easy it was for her to leave, how easily she stepped out of our life and into another like she was changing coats. I remembered the note on the counter, no explanation, just bullet points and a key. You should talk to someone, she said. Seriously, this isn't okay. I said. I've been going to a group. She laughed bitterly. Good, maybe tell them you're slipping random drinks to people. Her car door slammed. She drove off without looking back. I stood in the parking lot for a long time, hands stuffed in my jacket pockets, feeling the wind slip through me like I wasn't even there. It wasn't about the tea anymore. It wasn't even about her. It was about me. What scared me wasn't that she might have done something. It was that I believed she could. It was that I'd become someone who could hand a possibly drugged drink to an innocent person and justify it with "I needed to know." That was the real rot. That was what I couldn't outrun. I walked home. I didn't stop at the store to get anything. I didn't call anyone. I didn't go to the next group meeting, and I didn't explain why. I just walked and let it settle. The confrontation, the admission. I was never going to get the answer I wanted. Because it wasn't about proof, it was about trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't unbreak. It just becomes something else, something shaky and half there, a haunted thing. Like me. I didn't talk about it again, not with Carl, not with the group, not even to myself, not really. I let it sit where it wanted to sit, deep in my stomach, heavy and unmoving, like a stone swallowed by accident. Sometimes you don't need to pull something out, you just need to stop feeding it. It took weeks before I could walk into the kitchen without tensing up. I still haven't touched the kettle she used. But one Sunday, without really meaning to, I bought a new one. Sleek, silver, quiet when it boils, not like the old one with its angry whistle that used to feel like an alarm bell in my brain. I started buying tea again, real tea, not the sleep aid, sedative crap, but blends I picked out on my own. Earthy ones, smoky ones, loose leaf in tins with silly names like Evening Drift or Mind Garden. I didn't sniff them all in the aisle this time. I just picked a few and took them home. The first time I made a cup, I watched the water swirl through the strainer like I was expecting a ghost to rise out of it. But it didn't. It was just tea, just hot, bitter, soothing tea. I drank it sitting on the back step in a hoodie, bare feet cold on the concrete. The air was wet with spring coming early. My lawn was a mess. I liked that. Carl texted that night, just a simple meeting next week, you in? I said yeah, maybe. I wasn't sure if I'd go, but I liked that he asked. I started answering my sister's calls again. She never pushed, never asked for the whole story. Just wanted to know I was alive and still eating and not sleeping in the same clothes for 3 days straight. I told her I was okay, then after a pause I told her the truth, not great, but better, maybe. She said that's enough. And for once I believed her. There's this moment every morning now, right after I wake up, before the noise comes in, where I just lie there in bed, staring at the ceiling and feel quiet, not happy, not healed, not anything grand, just quiet. A stillness I didn't know I'd been starving for. I don't think about her much anymore, not like I used to. She comes in flashes now, like background noise, like a smell on an old shirt, like static in a song I used to love. Some days I even feel sorry for her. Other days I feel nothing. The chipped lilac mug is gone. I threw it into the garbage bin after the last snow melted. Didn't break it, didn't dramatize it. Just placed it on top of an empty pizza box, closed the lid, and walked back inside. That felt better than smashing it ever would have. There's a plant on the kitchen windowsill now. I don't know what it is. My neighbor gave it to me because it was dying in her place and she thought maybe I'd want something to take care of. I almost said no, but the pot was blue and kind of beautiful in a chipped, unassuming way. It's doing okay. I water it on Sundays. I know now that I won't ever really get closure, not the kind you hope for, not the neat bow on a bad chapter, but I'm learning how to live without it. I'm learning how to stop needing to be sure. Because maybe the tea was just tea, and maybe it was, maybe I'll never know. But I made a choice that day, a scared, strange choice, and I have to live with that. The point now isn't whether she meant to hurt me. The point is that I don't live in that question anymore. I'm here in this little house that creaks when the wind blows, drinking strange tea, letting my lawn overgrow, watching the plant by the window slowly reach toward the light like it actually believes in something. That's enough. And for now, that's mine.